don't even know if it makes sense to do a classic opening on this episode. Usually I say, hi, welcome back to Overstimulated with me, Hilary Henderson. I introduce the guest and we start talking about something ridiculous. Given that this is our next episode after the American election, and of course I am Canadian. Most of the guests I have are Canadian. But I think we would be naive to think that what's happening south of the border doesn't also impact us as well. And so to our American fans, all 10 of you, love you. What I really want to talk about today is the issue of abortion and reproductive health care. That is something that myself, having grown up, I've talked about on this show before, having grown up in a Christian community. I went to a Christian private school for elementary school. I went to a Catholic high school. I have direct family members that don't agree with my perspectives on this issue, and that is okay. And I think that we need to look at what's happening in Canada and to not see ourselves as removed from what's happening south of the border. So as some of you may know, earlier this year, there was a Conservative MP named Arnold Versen. I don't really care how to say his last name, to be honest. MP Arnold, who I'm not going to speak about his appearance. We'll maybe put a photo up if you're watching on video. I think it's low bar to insult someone's appearance, but he simultaneously is balding and has a soul patch. Earlier this year, in May of 2024, he tabled a position in the House of Commons that was meant to ban abortion care in Canada, as well as same-sex marriage. Now, he tabled this on my birthday, and I can't help but take that personally.
What kind of fucking double whammy?
This was
idiot evil. Turd of a person.
Yeah.
Both? You had to do both.
Yeah. Just like pick a lane, you know? But I guess in his view, as someone who grew up in a community of 100 people in rural Alberta, who has no formal training in medicine or law, felt the need to make that position. So he is not the only MP in the Conservative Party of Canada that holds this view. The leader of the Conservative Party, after this position was tabled, he came out and said that this position that this one MP had did not reflect his views, nor the view of his party, nor would be indicative of the action he would take if he became prime minister. Now, while that is comforting in some ways, I still don't think that's sufficient. I don't think that's enough. And look, I get it. Like I said, I grew up around people that hold religious beliefs that prevent them from, let's say, seeing an argument objectively. And I understand that. But if you're looking at a state and what the state is meant to do, you can have your own personal beliefs. That's fine. That could be something you don't wish for yourself, for your wife, for your girlfriend, for your sister. You know, I have members of my family, and thank God I've never been in this position yet. But if I had told them that I've gotten an abortion, they would be furious. They would be devastated. And that's not to say that that's still not someone's choice. But if you hold those beliefs for whatever religious reason, no one's going to change your mind on that. But that is not the role that you can decide that somebody else doesn't have access to something like that. I have a number of close friends who have received abortion care themselves, and they would not be the women that they are today had they had children when they were 16. Make no mistake, the kind of position that was tabled in the House of Commons earlier this year in Canada, there was no guidelines around if people became pregnant due to sexual assault, if they were ill. And so it's these kind of sweeping measures that are just so upsetting and devastating. And the roots that people with these religious beliefs have, even within our public education system, is scary to me. So I went to a Catholic high school, and as most people who went to high school in Ontario High School know, you need to complete up to 40 hours of community service in order to get your high school certificate of graduation. in my Catholic high school and in the whole school board that I was a part of, if you attended the pro-life protest in Ottawa called March for Life, if you attended that every year for 4 years, 10 hours of volunteer hours service each year, if you just did that protest, no other contributions to your community, you would get your 40 hours of community service.
Was it actually 40 hours of protesting, or they would just count?
No, it was like they were maybe out for a couple hours, but it was like they would count your time traveling there. You would stay overnight. And the tragic thing is remember, these are high schoolers.
I want to let you finish, but like this is like when people say systematic, that's what they mean.
Yes.
Let's create a system where it's benefits people to believe this political thing, to do this political thing for our own means.
Yeah.
Somebody from the pro-life movement came to the school board and hatched that plan. That is not something that's like organic.
Yeah.
That's not something from like the harder mind of probably even the principal at the time. Yeah. It is a conceited effort. And when people say something is systematic, that's what they mean. You can imagine that as a different, separate, faster lane.
Yeah.
For Ontario high schoolers to...
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's institutionalized
and
in a way.
Impressionable at that age.
Exactly.
Most of the time you believe the first opinion you hear if it sounds good.
For sure.
Because you don't know. I remember stuff I believe that I'm embarrassed. The stuff that I said that I'm embarrassed about now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
And when you're growing up in a small community and then you don't hear any other opinions until you're 22.
Right.
It's baked in. Because we're stubborn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not saying much because I want to let you finish. But, yeah.
Thanks, Sam. We'll introduce Sam in just a moment, our guest today. But yeah, as Sam was just saying, in the high school, there's kids that are teenagers, and not to out myself as too much of a loser, but I was not sexually active until I left high school. So I had no concept of these things. Now, I never participated in any of those protests myself, but I had many friends that did. And not just one protests over years. And I know for a fact, many of those women, those young girls that were participating in these things, are no longer people who hold those beliefs. And so when we're looking at action, and I think a lot of critiques that are coming out of the recent campaigns in the States, people are saying, certain people weren't speaking up soon enough. There wasn't enough action quickly enough. And make no mistake, we have an election next year in Canada. And so I want this space to be a community where we talk about these kind of issues in an open way. I hope that Sam, who will introduce in a moment, will have a great conversation today. But I welcome anyone to be able to sit down with me and have a balanced discussion that's based in research, science, and facts. The other thing I'll mention as well is that I think sometimes in Canada, we sometimes think that we're so far removed from the States and that our reality is nowhere near theirs.
Baby.
That's not true. In our smallest province, Prince Edward Island, abortion care only became accessible to residents there in 2017, just 5 years ago. In 2017.
I feel like I learned that and forgot.
Yeah. And it's only available in 2 of the major cities. And that's, the case across like Canada is we're a country of just cities spread out all over the place. And so
I just want to imagine people having to take a boat to get a colonoscopy. Imagine you have butt cancer in your family and you have to take a fucking boat to get a colonoscopy. You would be on the ringer with your MP like, what the fuck? That's what we're dealing with, except it's a lifelong commitment to parent a child that no one should have to bear the brunt of if they don't want to.
Yeah.
This is what I don't understand about the whole thing. And sorry, I will let you finish.
Please.
Trying to put this as sympathetically as possible. The world needs more mothers who want to be mothers.
Yes.
Because we've all seen people who had kids and you can see the resentment behind their eyes. It's not a pretty sight.
Yeah.
Anyway, so many other reasons than that. But that's so many other reasons. And of course, once someone is born, every life is sacred.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are reverberations when you take away people's freedom that go past far, way beyond our comprehension. Yeah. And I think, that's important to know.
No, for sure. And I should also say too that since, most of my audience is young women, I understand that people are going to fall on a diversity spectrum of whether people want to have children or not. I mean, like one of my best friends who's getting married next year, I'm so excited for her. She was my best friend. I sat beside her in grade 9 homeroom, and we've been inseparable ever since. Neither of us went to the March for Life protests. But since I met her, she said, I want to be a mom and I want to have a family and I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And that's been her dream ever since. And she's getting married next year. She's looking for homes with her fiance. Like I'm so excited for her. It's
so
not
cool.
that it's not saying people shouldn't do that if that's what they hope to and desire to aspire to. Like that's not the case at all. But I think there's so many other confounding factors that go into people saying, well, I want that kind of life for myself, like perhaps a more traditional quote unquote life, and saying like, now I can't do that. And like, this is the problem for it. There's a video I want to roll for you, Sam, where this young woman is in America and she's talking about this exact issue.
Yeah. Okay.
I would love to be a stay-at-home mom. I would love to be a homemaker and a wife. I would love to be able to live on a homestead and go milk my cow and take the eggs out of the chicken coop and have one baby in the belly and on my hip and another toddler coming behind me. That's like my dream, but I can't fucking do that because the way the economy is set up is I'm forced to work. I'm forced to get an education, a higher education, a college degree in order to make enough money that I can be financially independent and afford my own home or my own rent or my own gas or my own groceries, my own insurance. And it's extremely difficult to do that. And it's very isolating as a woman when you have to do all of that all on your own and you can't find somebody that you can outsource some of those chores and financial responsibilities like you would with a spouse. So no, being a single working woman absolutely sucks. It's the worst thing ever. I hate it. I would go back to the 1950s in a second just so I wouldn't have to deal with this shit.
You're talking about a traditional nuclear family where the woman doesn't work in a married household with kids.
And statistically, that was the case.
You're a single woman who isn't married with kids yet. Like,
yeah, so I'm for because of the way it is. Most women were married by the age of 21 up until the 1970s.
I think it's a woman's choice. Before that, it was societally encouraged to marry young.
Yeah, and it was better for women mental health-wise, long-term, to be able to go into that long-term commitment relationship and
Stop the clip. Stop the clip. First of all, we're right by Penny's bar, and I can see this woman yapping on the porch of Penny's bar. Can you go first? I don't.
So, I mean, I would say that claim's probably false, that getting married at 21 was better for mental health, long-term impacts.
Feel bad for you?
No, but what I think is interesting in this, and she stated it clearly, the cause is that the economy is such that reality for somebody doesn't exist anymore, right?
Yeah.
And
but what reality is that? Like, to me,
yeah,
she is painting the picture of this like Norman Rockwell watercolor painting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, she didn't just say, I want kids and a house. She wanted to live on a homestead with 3 kids and have a cow to milk.
Right. Yeah. Which I will say, I don't know if that would end up being less work than what she's doing. Right. I don't know what her job is right now, but like homesteads are a lot of work.
The reason I'm upset, like, of course, we're all living in a time where she's right. Like, economically, we cannot afford the life that we once thought we wanted. Yeah, like to be a single income household is so difficult. And I think we're all in different demographics are dealing with a broken promise in one way or another. Yeah. Young men are dealing with a broken promise of being a provider and they can't be. Our parents are dealing with the retirement they thought they were owed and they can't. You know, everyone feels like the promise they were given is broken. Yeah. I just don't know if she's top of my list on who we owe. No,
I don't feel bad for her in the sense. But what I think is interesting about this is, you know, what she's stating is, you know, her and even what the other woman that was, you know, countering her point, saying, well, I think a woman should be able to choose that.
This is a white woman's fantasy. I mean, only a white woman would say, I want to go back to the 1950s so I can own a cow.
It's so true.
This is why it makes me angry. I mean, I want this woman to fall in love. I want her to have kids. I want her to be able to afford it. But to say it was better when we got married at 21. Yeah. Babe, talk to your grandma. She hates your grandpa. She was forced to marry him. She hates that guy. Yeah. When my grandpa died, do you know what my mom found? No. She found all these comics my grandma had clipped out over the years. Oh, these are funny. Haha. Every single one of them. Premise, marriage fucking blows. So
she was not content.
It wasn't great at 21.
No. Okay. No. And also, whenever you hear stories of how
my grandma died early because her husband wouldn't like go on walks or leave the house with her. Oh, ew. So her health deteriorated.
True, because of
this is the reality of a 1950s housewife.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So-
and also how many things have we seen it depicted in film and in media of that was actually terrible for one's mental health to just be essentially locked inside.
And
all
the
day.
reason I'm upset too is that so much of the conservative movement has used this like cheap nostalgia for the past as a fuel. Like we can get back to when things were better, and nobody has a time machine. We have to build the future together.
Yes.
So this idea of like, we have to go back to the 1970s. You weren't around.
Yeah.
You haven't talked to any women who were around in the 70s. They couldn't get a credit card, babe.
Yes. Yes.
They didn't have a credit card.
Yeah.
Without their papa or their husband to sign it off.
Even in Canada, it wasn't women couldn't open a bank account without
their husband. It really makes me mad when people, she thought about this take before she was on whatever show this is.
Yeah.
And it's just completely uneducated and really harmful. And I don't feel bad for a woman who hasn't found a romantic partner that, like, we're all looking for romantic.
Sure, we're all looking for love. We're all looking.
And it all
towards
happens at different times. And sometimes it happens
Yeah.
later than you would have liked.
Yeah.
This is not a unique struggle of yours.
No.
Yeah.
And but what I think is interesting is she mentioned the issue of the economy and people not able to support a full family on a single income. That is a separate issue. I think that is one issue, and she's equated that to, well, we need to go regress back to these archaic kind of family structures where like a nuclear family only could look one certain way and was often oppressive to so many other folks involved, right? And so I think it's interesting because people see their own reality is what's impacting them and what's hurting them, and they will make a jump to whatever conclusion they're fed or they have processed as reasonable, right? And so
they feel owed.
Yeah.
She feels owed.
Yes.
There's an entitlement in this clip that I think is hard to digest, even after being like, it is hard to live alone and afford your life as a single woman. Hello, nobody, girl, we feel you there.
Yeah.
But then you kept talking.
And then, right.
So I feel her there, but we, especially white people, we have to get better at like feeling discomfort and not like saying, what are the politicians doing about this? Like, do you know what I mean?
About
like,
affordability, maybe not about like the way you need to. Yeah. But it's funny too, because even going back to what you're saying about grandparents, like I feel like anytime you hear like your grandmother explain how she met her like husband, it's like, he like there was a war. He was the only man that ever called me pretty. Or it was like a hostage situation.
That's the romance. That's a Harlequin novel. My Nona, she was living, I imagine, her best life in Rome. She was from Roccamuccio in Sicily, small town, moved to Rome. She got a job as a tailor, a woman in the 40s in Rome with her own job. I'm like, she was flying fucking high. Absolutely. She was like, I worked by the Trevi Fountain. So I'm like, her life ruled. Then she got a picture the size of a postage stamp and they said, that's your husband and you're going to Canada. She said, it's cold there. They said, okay. And they put her on her ship. She was pregnant, I think, on the boat over, had 4 kids, and has been in St. Catharines ever since.
No, that's so, she left right next to the Trevi Fountain to live in St. Catharines?
Yes.
That's devastating,
Baby,
Sam.
she arrived from Rome. She arrived in Halifax.
Oh no.
She was like,
oh no.
What is this shithole?
She's like, I can't eat any of the food here.
You know what? She still says she loves, she has very bad dementia now. But anyway, so she doesn't remember much. I went to visit her with my partner and she was like, get these ugly boys out of here. That's what she said. God bless.
Yeah. Was that, had to have anything to do with like 1940s Mussolini, or was that like purely like, this is a man, you should go get him?
You know, the story of my family is like, no one really knows for sure. I'm sure it was just like to build a better life. And there's a bunch of Italians over there. So go.
Yeah.
Italians, like so many immigrants, like when they were living in Italy, they were like, we have to get out. There's no money. It's like a shithole. And then they leave and they spend the minute their toe touches the soil of like New America, they're like, oh, we have to get back to the motherland. It's like, you left.
Yeah.
It was fascism, no jobs, starving.
Yeah.
You know, unless you were my Nona, apparently. Anyway.
And that was my full life. That was,
So, and then yeah. So to this, and my nonna wasn't even allowed to mow the lawn because it was like outside of the house. Do you know what I mean? So miss me with this 1950s take.
Yeah. That's not. I'm assuming you probably don't want to watch the rest of this clip.
Not really. Were you expecting me to get
through the whole thing? No, I wasn't expecting you to get angry. But what I thought was so interesting about this, Sam, and that's why I wanted to show you, was that, you know, that is someone who you pointed out, like, could easily be a girl that we would see on the patio down the street. Like, I could easily see someone, you know, somebody who listens to my podcast and is a fan of my comedy having that belief. And I'm not trying to say that, like, again, you wanting a traditional life is the wrong choice. Not at all. We need people to do that, you know? Well, maybe not need, you know.
Yeah, I just think we have to be careful about how we express our anger. It's okay to be like, I can't afford this city. Like, groceries are too high. I haven't found anybody to help me out. Like, you know, in a different time, I would have had 2 incomes, but I just think it's really, it's just really not an educated
It's
take.
not a
because she's
balanced take,
taking the best parts of the past and implementing on the current future. And I don't think that's like true.
Correct.
And I don't feel bad for I don't feel bad for her.
Yeah.
We all find our partners at different times, and sometimes they help out rent and sometimes they don't.
Yeah. Have you ever paid a partner's rent before?
No, I haven't, but I've definitely have been the one who was giving the
I paid your rent before, Sam.
Yeah. Totally.
Speaking of paying rent, I also know that you and your partner don't sleep in the same bedroom.
Yeah, no, we don't.
That's so fascinating to me.
Which to this point, I guess, is a privilege to have two bedrooms.
Right? Yeah. In this economy in Toronto,
I know. I feel like a sultan at this point. But
how did you come? Like, walk me through. What was that conversation like? Was that always
Hilary,
what you planned to do?
There was no conversation. We used to sleep in the same bed for like the first few months we were dating, and then he would kind of whisper in my ear like, "I'm gonna go sleep in the other bed," like when we were done cuddling, and I was like, "Okay." And then eventually we would just like finish watching TV, and he'd be like, "I'm going to bed." Like, I'm skipping the middle part, and we were like, I was like, "T." You're
like, I'm already in a sexless marriage.
yeah. So we have to do sleepovers if we do that stuff.
Okay, so you have sleepovers. If you're, so you don't have a separate bang in bed. You just have 2 separate.
No, we don't have 3 bedrooms. Harry.
You're not rich yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have been wanting to do a sex room at one point though, but we're not. We're not there yet.
Good outsource for that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Do you find like does that help your relationship, being able to sleep in different bedrooms?
I think it's like the number one thing I would recommend to people. I think sleeping in the same bed is so oppressive. I can't imagine needing to sync up a bedtime with another adult.
Oh, especially doing comedy too.
And when we do share beds, I am awakened every time every time he comes into bed.
You're like a light sleeper.
And also, I think it's very important in this crazy world that we live in to have a room that is purely your own and in your full control. Put stuff where you want, you decorate it how you want to see the things you want to see, you make it beautiful the way you want to. And then you get in a relationship and you have to have someone else's sweatpants, candles,
everything. Yeah.
Letters from their grandma. I don't give a shit about any of that.
Wait, that would actually make me so upset if I had to like move out. Like I've lived with a partner before, a man, and like even just like sharing a closet with him, I was like, okay, I don't know where you're gonna put your things, but my things are in the closet. So
no.
You can figure that out.
No, two beds.
2 beds.
2 beds.
Okay. Why did you decide separate rooms and not just like 2 separate beds?
Because that would be absolutely psychotic. Like we were Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we were a TV family from the 50s. Speaking of the 1950s.
Speaking of the 50s, yeah.
Yeah, that woman's like, I want to be able to afford an apartment, and gay guys should sleep in 2 separate beds in the same bedroom. Okay, I said it.
Someone had to, finally. That's
She really made me mad. I'm sorry, but whatever.
Yeah. What would you, okay, I feel like you still want to talk about that.
No, I don't.
You don't. Okay.
I more feel bad because I feel like you would be like, isn't it tough that women like can't afford? And I was just like, fuck her. After this election, I just really... I've lost my patience.
Yeah. Were you watching the results as the election was coming in? What were you thinking? What were you feeling?
I felt so much numbness before the election came, but I remember when Kamala was announced, there was kind of this like fanfare, I think, in leftist communities. People were really excited. And whatever, it doesn't matter being right or wrong, but I was just like, I don't have a good feeling. And I was thinking today, there's not much difference between her and Hilary. I can't think of any policies that are different. Personality wise, pretty similar. So
I think she's a bit more lively. Kamala's a little bit more, more
but
lively.
I think,
but yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, I will say at least this time, I don't think it wasn't quite as embarrassing because do you remember Hilary was in like the room with the glass ceiling?
What?
That was on election night. Yeah, when she didn't concede obviously like that evening, but the like party for her, like the celebration, they were in a room where it was supposed to be like there was a glass ceiling, and I think like some commentators were saying like it was gonna like open up and like this symbolism of like a woman finally becoming the first president, like breaking that glass ceiling.
I kind of love that idea though. Like, so I'm willing to forgive her.
Also, just but
the
embarrassing.
gay event planner in me is like, and the balloons will break through a glass ceiling. I'm like, wait, that's kind of cunty, Hilary. I'm kind of sad. Did she break it anyway? Fuck it.
I think she should have. I mean, you pay the damage deposit,
Girl,
just like ruin it. Get
pop your champagne.
Yeah. What's that Beyonce music video where she's like hitting everything with the bat?
The lemonade.
The lemonade one.
Yeah.
That. But yeah, I was gonna say at least they didn't have that kind of setup for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I'm feeling. Now I'm feeling like, I think especially if you are like not in a marginalized group, and even if you're queer and white like me, I think our downtime right now needs to be minimal. Yesterday, like the day after the election, it was all like, take the time you need, and I kind of wanted to reach through the phone and be like, this is only if you're like a POC or a trans person. Everyone else get to fucking work. And that's how I'm feeling. I'm angry. I want to see people energized. I want to see people at protests. I want to see us like act like involved in community.
Yeah.
Because we have work to do.
Yeah.
I mean, like we're in history right now. You know what I mean? Like the Donald Trump is going to be remembered like in the same way we remember Reagan, and people are like, oh, the Reagan years. And you hear about like, you know, the AIDS protesters and stuff like that. Like, it's hard work.
Yeah.
But you get to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And I really want to see people like energized. I'm kind of like, I kind of like think this like, I like throwing your hands up or this numbness. Like we can't afford that. Like there are people in our community who need to rest. Probably Black women who have always voted Democrat since like the beginning of time. Trans people, surely, queer people, so many communities that like need rest. I think the rest of us need to get the fuck out there. And I'm so done with this. Like I can't. Like what do we do? It's like no, we know what to do. Like there's so many tools at our disposal, and I'm just trying to like fire myself up because I don't want to like lay down and take this. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. And I really think like we need to have our guard up. I really think fascism is not just knocking at the door. Like it's kind of let itself in.
And not just in America, like throughout the whole world. Like
we always copy their homework
For
5 years later.
So are you? So sorry to clarify. You're saying that people who, regardless of if they're in America or elsewhere, people who are feeling disappointed by the election result, you're saying that.
Let's
get
move.
up, start
Let's
moving.
go.
Yeah.
I don't have much patience for me.
Yeah.
For me,
Are you even saying people in your own community, like in the queer community? That's like
it's only been a couple days, so I think like people are still like not sure. And ultimately, his presidency hasn't even really started yet.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of waiting and seeing how bad it's going to be. But like, I think we can expect some pretty awful things, and I hope people feel like energized and angry in a productive way, even if that means like engaging more in your community and feeling more connected with the people around you so that you can help them just in small ways, like live their life.
Yeah.
You know, especially if they're like older, elderly, I don't know, like it sounds like small potatoes, but I think you'd be surprised, you know?
It's so
no,
funny.
that's just how I'm feeling.
Yeah. It's so funny how quickly we go back to like just like our default mode though. Like I remember even in the early days of the pandemic, it was like, oh my gosh, everyone's like checking in on their neighbor. Like, you know, that lasted what, 2 weeks? And then we're like, oh, never mind.
But there were organizations that did keep it going.
Yeah.
It just takes work.
Yeah.
It really takes work because we're not really wired right now in society for community, you know? Like there's community fridges and there was mutual aid networks. They were ongoing through the pandemic, but what people love to do is like do the pots and pans thing at 6 p.m. because it's easier.
You're right. You're right. Yeah.
And I'm even like challenging myself. Like I don't want to be complicit anymore. Do you know what I mean? I think like, Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry I'm being so earnest and serious, but I feel like that's kind of what we're doing here today.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
fuck
This
it.
is a bit more of a serious conversation. I think
And I don't want to throw my hands up. Like I don't want.
Yeah.
I really don't. I want to I want people to hopefully have that energy
feel
to fight
it and think. Yeah, and it's so hard. It's so challenging to even know. Like, yeah. Anyways, I was gonna start listing out things that we could do, but I don't actually know. So I'm gonna.
But that's okay. Oh my God, two people on a podcast who admit they don't know something. Write it down.
Write it down,
Speaking of
everybody.
history making. We don't know. Do your own research.
We don't know. Yeah, we're gonna do some
How about
research.
fucking that?
Yeah.
I'm not, and we're not social activists, but guess what? There are people who full time, this is what they do.
Yes.
They engage in community.
Yeah.
And they are making it so easy right now for you to be involved. So,
Yeah. It's so funny. And you're so right about the piece of, we copy America's homework 5 years later. And I feel like I made this this TikTok during the night of the election that was just like, us as Canadians, like we're looking and we're being like, yo, I think our neighbor's house is on fire. And then we go and check. We're like, yeah, no, it's definitely on fire. Actually, it looks like it's been like burning like years for that. And like no one seemed to do anything. And then you're like, okay, do you want me to help? Like, can And they're like, no, I'm good. I'm actually been sitting here the whole time because this building was built on my right to burn in it. And it's just like the lack of just clarity of thought like people have where it's like, how do you in this
and there are people inside the house who make fire alarms and sell them to the people in the house.
Yes.
But then they have their own house that's underwater.
Yeah.
To make this metaphor.
Yes. And everybody who's making money isn't even on that same block or city. They're in towns over.
They're in
safe and
Jetsons level above the ground.
Yeah.
Anyway, are we following?
But we'll draw a diagram later for everybody to
but
catch up.
We have so much work to do here. Like it's going to be a conservative government. I mean, federally.
I believe so too. Yeah. And I also want to clarify as well. Like, I don't believe every member of the Conservative Party is like an awful.
I know. I wanted to speak on that too.
I don't think everybody who votes conservative is also like that.
Yeah,
as well,
I wanted to speak on that too because you did say, there's that one MP, but then Pierre was like, no, this doesn't reflect our beliefs.
Yes.
But we know how this goes. It's incremental, right? And the fact that it's even been introduced, like, we're trying to learn something from America, right? So we have to be diligent about these things. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And something I was thinking of too. Again, we're not experts, but when it comes to the law, everything is about precedent. Thank you. Forgot the T.
Precedent.
Okay, and I'm just getting word that I did say it wrong. Thank you. And
we're actually. I know we've been spewing out what we believe are pretty good facts this whole time, but like we actually don't know how to spell. No, I'm just kidding.
But as soon as like a small thing gets passed, it can lead to a bigger and bigger thing. So if one law about bodily autonomy gets passed, it could lead to more. Do you know what I mean? So
exactly.
It's okay to be diligent. You know what I mean? I think it's okay to be a little bit sensitive about these things.
Well, and it's funny too, because, even if you look at like the aggregate of how people feel in the States on like an issue like abortion, like it's like 60% are in favor. Like it's not, it's, and anyways, we don't need to get into the whole like fabrication of how that even became an issue in the political space.
There are other issues now.
Yes.
Like
and there are other sources of information you can go to find that. But it's, especially when you're thinking of like the context of like, what is government meant to do now? Not to get like so like down that my master's in public administration, people know this, but like
work.
But there's real things like housing and like climate change and like bigger, not saying bigger issues, but like real like long-standing like concerns for people. And like this is what MPs are wasting precious parliament time on. It's like it's infuriating, and like in Canada, it's been over 40 years that people have been able to marry whoever they want and seek abortion care if that's what they wish to do. Like it's not like it's the way this is coming back is like a fresh issue is so infuriating, especially when like our homes are burning. Yeah, like people don't have spaces to live here. Like no one people can afford their rent and their groceries, and like this is what you're going on about.
Yeah, and the sucky thing too is that like because these issues are made to be hot button polarizing issues, they actually do require a lot of nuance, and we could get into it if we could like calm the fuck down. Yeah. So like immigration, for example, like there is a tension there between jobs for Canadians and like how many immigrants do we allow in? We allow too many, all the jobs fill up. No one can get a job.
Yeah.
Too few. Our economy isn't stimulated.
Yeah.
This is because we rely on new immigrants in Canada to grow the economy.
Yep.
There's a conversation there.
Yeah.
But what happens is it usually goes to something racist or something like political in a different way. And no one can really figure it out or like turn the levers in a way where it actually works because everything, you know, when it becomes so polarizing, you can't actually dive down into like what politics actually is supposed to be is like going to the data and like being smarter than us and figuring out how many is enough. And do you know what I mean? Now we have all these like new university students who are anyway. It's like the whole thing.
Yeah.
Hilary.
Sam.
Hilary.
We're going down a deep, deep dark hole.
I know. This is the thing. We're actually quite serious, even though we're comedians. So
Yeah.